that being said, Nitin Bhai, and I think Sandhya ji, I'm going to make you the host, I've been told. So here we go. So you guys, thank you, and all yours. Radhe Radhe, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you, Nitin Bhai, for
Radhe Radhe, Nitin Bhai. Today, Pallavi is not there, so I am being the co-host with Sandhya ji.
Okay, all right.
In the class, and as we all know, we have a parenting session tomorrow evening, India time, tomorrow morning. So let's all join and have insights on how to be a better parent. Though we all are, but still we can strive for being better. By Radhe Radhe, by all over.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Shamji. And today we are going to pick up the next shloka, 4.26, and we will tie it to the Varnasharama Dharma that are so strongly advocated in Sanatan Dharma. And part of it is becoming a good parent as well. Okay? So we'll get into that as well a little bit. So welcome, a very warm good morning, good evening to all of you. Hope you're having a great start to your day or had a wonderful day. We will get started with today's session. I'm going to share my screen and get started with our opening prayers. All good, I hope.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Let's get started with our opening prayers then. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Krishnam Vande Jagadguru.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome once again. All right, so we move on to 4.26 today. I would recite it and then you're welcome to follow along. Kshotrādīnindriyāṇanye samyamagnishu juhvati shabdādīn vishyananya indriyagnishu juhvati. All right, who are the volunteers today? It's a bit of a tongue twister, but I'm sure you can pull it off. So go for it. Wolverine. Okay, we've got somebody from Golok, not Golok, but Hawaii. So yes, please go ahead in your avatar. Please go ahead.
Oh, they need to be unmuted, no?
Yes, I think it is needed to be unmuted. Otherwise, it's usually a good idea to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll not hear you. So please.
Shrotraadīnindriyāṇanye samyamagnishu juhvati shabdādīn vishayāṇanya indriyagnishu juhvati. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Wolverine ji. Who's the next one?
Payal ji, shall I take over? Payal ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Radhe Radhe. Shrotrādīnindriyāṇanye संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति. Radhe Radhe.
We'll try it. Wonderful. Let's take some more.
Sandhya ji, you want to go ahead?
Yes, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Shrotrādīnindriyāṇanye samyamagnishu juhvati शब्दादीन् विषयानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति.
Very nice, Sandhya. Wonderful. We have nice recitation for the first timers.
Shirame,
A few more hands. Let's take those.
Shirame, Shirame ji, Radhe
Radhe.
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 श्रोत्रादीनिन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्या इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति. Thank you.
Very nice, Shriramya. Okay, we have few more hands. Let's take them.
Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Rahul.
राधे राधे श्रोत्रादीनिन्द्रियाण्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् निश्यानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति. राधे राधे.
Shabdadin Vishayananya. So, all right, good. Well tried. All right.
Shifali ji, Radhe
Brave,
Radhe.
brave participant today. So, please go ahead.
राधे राधे श्रोत्रादीन्येन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन्यविषयानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति. राधे राधे.
Well done. Very nice, Shefali. Wonderful. Yes, maybe 3 more hands, 4 more hands. Last
We
4.
have Ashutosh ji, Radhe Radhe.
I can see some people practicing and making up their mind to say. So let's take the 4 in the meantime. Yes.
श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति.
Very nice, Ashutoshi. Radhe Radhe.
Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji.
Radhe Radhe, namaskar to everybody. Sir, I'll just split it and I'll try to speak.
Sure.
Shotra adini indriyani anye संयम अग्निषु जुह्यति शब्द आदीन विषयान अन्ये इंद्रिय अग्निषु जुह्यति.
Very
Thank
nice,
you.
Nitin ji. Wonderful. Thank you. All right, we have 4 more hands, 3 more hands.
Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji.
Pragi ji, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, that will be good if you can.
I can't do it. Okay. Riya ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shrotraadin indriyananye sanyamagnishu juvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyanishu juvati.
Very
Radhe
nice.
Radhe.
Thank you. Pragi ji, are you able to unmute now? Okay.
I can't also. I can't do it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Rupa ji, Radhe Radhe.
Move on to Rupa ji. Good to see you back, Rupa ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
I will just give a try. Just now I entered it.
Sure, sure.
Shrotraadinindriyanyanye samyamagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagninashu juhvati.
Thank you, Rupa ji. All right, the last one. Last but not the least, Sumesh, please go ahead.
Ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Shrotraadinindriyanyanye samyamagnishu juhvati sabdadin vishayananyan indriyanignusu juhvati. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Sumesh. All right, Ravi, are you able to unmute yourself? Last one.
Yes, Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
She can. Better. now.
I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Shotradini indriyanyanne संयमा अग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयान् अन्ये इन्द्रिया अग्निषु जुह्वति.
Very nice, Pragiji. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. Shotradini, such as the hearing process. Indriyani means senses. Anya, others. Sanyama, restraint. Agnishu, in the sacrificial fire. Juhvati, sacrifice. Shabdadin, sound vibration. Vishayan, objects of sense gratification. Anya, others. Indriya, of the senses. Agnishu, in the fire. Juhvati, sacrifice. So the short translation for the shloka goes like, others offer hearing and other senses in the sacrificial fire of restraint. Still others offer sound and other objects of the senses as sacrifice in the fire of the senses. So here we are talking about senses, we are talking about sacrifice, we are talking about fire, we're talking about restraint. All these are the buzzwords in this shloka. Okay. So let's get started. We'll set the context for it. We'll have another discussion tomorrow to conclude this discussion, but today we will set the context for this. So before we start, let's get a bit of a thought process going here. What do you see in the screen? You see something on the screen, and then we see something again on the screen, right? So something is happening here, as you can clearly see, right? So just to get the thought process going, what do you think is happening here? You can make a quick mental note of it, right? We had a seed initially. Yes, Samji?
Radhe. See, if the seed on the right hand side is just dormant, nothing is happening with that one. But on the left, seed to germinate, it needs sun, air, and water. As soon as it gets it, it starts germinating. So maybe by the same token, in the spirituality, if you get right environment and right guru and right other things, spiritual scriptures, maybe you will also develop germinating and going towards the God-birds moment. Rather. That's what I think.
Great. Very nice, Samji. Beautiful analogy. Yes, Sri Ramya, you wanted to add something?
Yes, Radhe. I wanted to say that the potential is there in the seed. And if the sun, air, and water is not there, it's not that the seed is absolutely useless. It is still holding the potential, but when the right environment comes, it starts germinating.
Conducive environment comes, or when the right opportunity comes, it germinates. So hold on to that thought, okay? This is a very important concept. Now let's get started. We've spoken about the seed, we've spoken about the conducive environment, and the seed has started sprouting because it has the potential. A seed has a potential of a tree, by the way. Okay, that's how we are as well. All right, so let's get started. Now, what is the significance of Varnashram Dharma in human life? Okay, we're going to look at it a little bit today. So we look at it. Okay, no bias here with regards to which tree you find the most beautiful. Okay, let's just pick up one of those four categories. So we're going to talk about these four Varnashram dharmas that have been prescribed in our Sanatan Dharma, right, for humans. Brahmacharis, and then Grihastha, and then Vanaprastha, and then Sannyasi. Okay, these are the four ones. Now, typically we keep delving in Grihastha only for most of the time. Brahmachari and Grihastha. Vanaprastha, yes, maybe few, and then the Sannyas is even more rare. Okay, but these are the four categories which have been prescribed for humans. So why for humans? I mean, have you seen any animal saying that, okay, now I have completed my brahmacharya and I'm going into grihastha and now Vanaprastha? No, it's only for humans. That's because humans have a special privilege. To whom much is given, more is expected as well. There is a niyam, or basically some kind of traffic lights or some kind of a framework our scriptures has given us when we become humans. And this is one of those prescriptions, and that is for a reason. Everything happens is basically prescribed for a reason. Without prayojan, even nothing happens. So there is a good reason for enforcing this framework, not enforcing, but prescribing, I should say. Nobody's enforcing, it's our choice how we want to go through each one of these stages, or whether we want to go through any of these stages, or whether we want to jump stages, or whether we want to continue to live in a particular stage. Right? All choices are available. But let's look at it, why they are needed. And yes, Lakshmi ji, you had a question?
She just pulled out, I guess.
No worries.
She's back again. Should I take her?
Yes, please. Sure. If it's a real quick question, that
Yeah,
cannot.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
What is the difference between the last two, Vanaprastha and Sannyasi?
Yeah, that's what we will discuss today. So
Okay, right. Thank you.
we are still on time. Okay. So we spoke about these four: Grihast, Brahmachari, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi. So these are the four divisions of human life, namely, like we have spoken about, to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. There's a reason for these stages. Animals don't have it because animals, they typically live their life around these basic activities, primal activities: ahar, bhay, nidra, and maithunya, basically eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, which humans also do, by the way. But how do we differentiate ourselves from the animals? By leading a life around some regulative principles. And those regulative principles are imbibed in these four stages. Animals don't have that privilege. They are not expected. God is not going to say that, hey, you did not lead a regulated life, because they're animals. But humans, because they have, first of all, it is through grace of God, we get a human birth. We cannot take it for granted that we are human, so we will get a back-to-back human birth. Not necessary. It could take a while before we become human again, and that while could be another 8.4 million tourism. So because we are human, we are expected to lead our life around these prescribed stages and certain regulative principles around it. Now, human life is not for sense gratification, which is what we think it is. We say life is like an ice cream, enjoy it before it melts. Khao piyo, jiyo, ऐश करो, कर्जा करके घी पियो, like bhautikwad thing. And then somebody told that no, human life is like a candle, you have to burn and give others light. So that's the way. Now, in order for this, human life is so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. That is the final stage, sannyas, that we talk about. So let's go a little deeper. So brahmacharya, right? It starts with brahmacharya. We'll probably discuss a couple of them. Not this. Basically, is just to give a gist. If you look at the shloka, it's talking about sense, it's talking about restraint, it's talking about sacrifice, right? For all those concepts, and these principles are integral to imbibing some of those things. We will just scratch the surface for these without getting too much into the detail for these, right? We could have a session, multiple sessions on this itself if you want to. So the brahmacharya is basically in this stage. The job description, what is the job description in brahmacharya? Instructions of the guru, teachers. We acquire material science. Right? And then in Gurukul Pratha that we had, not only material science like Dhunar Vidya and all those things that were being taught to the students in previous times, they were taught spiritual science as well. So the expectation is that you follow your guru instructions, theory and practical, and that is a sacrifice that is expected during this stage. Okay, that is one of the sacrifices that you have to perform in brahmacharya. Then you have to control your mind by abstaining from sense gratification. That is also an expectation during brahmacharya. Right? Chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. Ear of the brahmachari is like a yagna could, right? Because it has to absorb all the knowledge. The Vedic sound mantras are the ahutis or the offerings, and the fire is the consciousness of the brahmachari. That is the yagya. As a brahmachari, during brahmacharya, one has to perform. And what is the heat? The heat from the brahmachari is the Sanyam Agni. That word Sanyam has come in the shloka as well, right? That means the challenge is to keep self-restraint, not to enjoy anything from money, fame, man, women, all that stuff kind of a deal. That is what is expected during the brahmacharya stage of our lives. Yes, Gulvarinji, you had a question as well?
Yeah. What is the theory plus practical? How do they implement practical part?
That means you don't simply listen to theory, you put it into practice as well, right? So if Guru is giving you knowledge, you practice it as well, right? If they're asking you to restrain, you don't just keep it as a theory. When you learn the recipe, you cook as well. That's essentially what it means. Don't limit it to theory alone. Both are needed during that time period, right? We have lab, we do practicals when we are studying. That is essentially the practical aspect of that theory. So when Guru gives you a teaching, then you start following those principles as well. Then it will go deeper. That is the whole idea during brahmacharya. All right. So this is the brahmacharya stage. Now, similarly, what are the job functions of a grihasthi, householders? That is the stage, right? Now, there is no duration actually. The duration could vary based on each individual's life. You can prolong it, you can protract it, basically shrink it, all that stuff is there. Typically, these are the 4 stages, and we'll see the common denominator around this, right? Now, grihasthas have to deal with sense objects, money, property, the familial relationship, children, name, fame, all that stuff. And the expectation is with restraint. And what is the heat for grihasthas? Like we saw for brahmacharis, it was Sanyam Agni. For grihasthas, it is Indriya Agni. Okay, you have to restrain your senses much more. It is like one has to put a cake or a sweet on your tongue and you are told not to eat. Okay, that is what grihastha life is. And that is why grihastha's ashram is higher than brahmachari ashram. They say that, right? For some reason in our scriptures. So in this case, the yajna kund is senses, the offering is sense objects, sacrifice here is being regulated. And if they indulge in excessive sense gratification, it will cause suffering. Our scriptures say that. So you have to be regulated in this as well. If you see some of the words that are repeating here is, regulation, restraint, control, right? In all the stages that they're talking about. Now, if we look at it, a quick, yes, Lakshmiji.
This is a term, I didn't understand that Indra Yagni.
Indriya
the
means
fire of
senses. Indriya means senses. Sense of touch, taste, smell, hear. Right?
Okay.
These are indriyas. So you have to exercise restraint for your indriyas, basically. So if you consider a human life like a day, right? It is like a brahmacharya childhood. It's a morning sacrifice. Gain is knowledge. Purusharth is dharma. Grihasth is young age, midday sacrifice, wealth and progeny, earth and calm is what you indulge in. Vanaprastha is evening sacrifice where you indulge in wisdom, moksha for the moksha. Okay, what is the bigger purpose of life? Then once you're past that stage, you start thinking bigger purpose of life. And finally, the old age sannyas, where it's more about internal sacrifice and you strive, you have actually perfected that stage in an ideal human life. They say you pass through all these stages, develop wisdom, and finally get liberated. So these stages, as Karamkand says, Dharam, Arth, Kam, and Moksha. We have not gotten into bhakti, by the way, so far. Okay, these are all Karamkand stages, Varnasharama, and all that stuff. So we will fit in bhakti. Okay, notice, don't worry about that. But this is how the stages are developed in each stage, and in each stage, the prescription is restraint. For humans, you have to go through this process and exercise restraint around that. Okay, it's not just for indulgence alone, and this is needed because each stage actually, so if you look at it, training the senses and restraining senses through sacrifices, even in these stages, is the order of the day. Okay. Let's continue. Now brahmacharis, they are called the legs of the society. Then grihasthas are the bellies. Bellies, right? If you don't have a stomach, then no organ will survive. The stomach is the what should I say, the one which nourishes each other part. So grihasthas are called belly in this system. We'll see why. And then the Vanprasth is the arms, and sannyasis are the head of the society. So we have brahmacharis, everybody are forced to go through that stage, right? As kids, more often than not. Whether they are adhering to the principles around, or that is a different question, but typically we go through that stage, all of us, to varying degrees. And then Griya stage, people who decide to, do something interesting with their life and they think they need to get in, they become Griyas. Vanprasth, very few people they do that. Right? Once they are done with their duties, then they find fun in doing some more things, with their extended families and becoming helicopter parents and discharging gyan as they have gained, right? The wisdom, it's talking about the spiritual wisdom, but the material wisdom they like to impart to their kids because they think they have acquired a lot of material wisdom. So Vanprasth aspect is typically missed out. We continue that grihast aspect of it, right? Vanprasth means you start seeking wisdom, make it a priority, as opposed to making your material life or familiar life as a priority. And then sannyasis are very rare, where you actually achieve liberation, right? You have, through that wisdom, you have gained that understanding that now I'm towards the fag end of my life and this is the goal of life. Very few people reach that stage. Now, these ashrams are actually mutually feeding each other. If you look at it, grihasthas are important, scriptures say, because their job description is fairly difficult. Okay? Like Swamiji, people say, Swamiji, how will you know all the problems that we have, right? You are a sannyasi, so it's easily said than done for you. Think about us family people, we have so many tensions, you have to take care of family and all that stuff. So Swamiji smilingly says, you have one wife and possibly few kids to take care of. I have such a large family. So many people reach out to Swamiji with their problems, and he has to resolve so many conflicts. He's basically, helps them manage their relationships as well, so that they can continue progressing spiritually. So then he says, I have got an extended family around that. Now, if you look at it, what is the greatest tension of grihasthas in the Vedic society? To get the daughter married or their son married, where will the bridegroom come from? From the brahmachari ashram, right? The bridegroom will come from brahmachari ashram. And where will the brahmachari come? They'll come from grihasthas. So all the ashrams, they support each other. It's not that you can sustain one ashram without the other. They actually sustain each other. It's not obligatory to go through all some people can actually short circuit from brahmachari to vanprasth and possibly liberation as well. Some, it's not that you have to go through that. So this is really what you call that, more of a framework that God has given. If you choose to enter into a particular ashram, these are the regulative principles around it. But the key there is the yagna, the sacrifice, the restraint, and the training of the senses. That is the key message. Not that unbridled sensory enjoyment is the purpose of human life. That is the key message if we were to take anything out of it. And the final goal is to get out of this matrix once we have led a successful life after discharging our duties, acquire wisdom and get out of it, get out of here, as opposed to repeat back again. Yes, Surendraji, you had a question?
Radhe Radhe Prabhu, thank you. I think it's a very good explanation of the Varna system also. It all goes with that.
Yep.
Does it mean that a human being can acquire all the four Varnas by their activities?
Yes. Yes, if you lead a template life, sure, you can pass through all the stages. But have you passed all the stages with flying colors is the question. We pass all the stages, but we miserably fail in most of the stages. Especially the last stage, a perfect human life would be you go through everything and then finally you are liberated, right? That will be the perfect life. You have acquired the required wisdom, you have discharged your duties, and then you're out of this cycle. But how many of us are able to truly do that is the question. So each stage we can pass through flying colors if we understand the regulative principles around it. Right? That usually doesn't happen.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
But the point here is, if we want to, let's see, a lot of people say we don't believe in God and this and that, right? That is fine. But as a human, there is a framework prescribed in our scriptures around that as well. So if we are not adhering to that, we are not doing ourselves a favor, because if we continue to indulge in senses and don't understand the bigger picture around life and acquire wisdom, have that spiritual spark, then it is a life wasted. It is a wasted life completely. So this is just like some traffic lights to bring in some discipline. Okay, now I've not spoken about bhakti. Okay, so that's where I'll finally lead it to. This is more for people who want to say that, we have been put on this earth for a good reason and we want to lead a good life. So follow the principles at least around it. Don't just, it's not a free hit or a blank check. That's essentially what it means. And the restraint, the disciplining, the sacrifices, these words are repeated in each stage. Okay. So that was the whole idea. And the shloka talks about that aspect only. And we are going to introduce two diametrically opposite views around what to do with these senses. It's completely diametrically opposite. That is where the bulk of the discussion around the shloka will eventually go. But I've just introduced the concept of sacrifice, restraining the senses. They are needed regardless. Yes, Surendraji, you had another question? Okay, so moving on.
Just a follow-up. The restraint we are discussing, does it apply to grahasthi so far as the obligation to the spouse is concerned?
The regulative principles apply in all the stages, even to brahmacharya, to grihasthi, to avanprasthi, and to old age. All the 4 stages. For brahmacharya, they have to follow the word of the teachers. They have to exercise restraint. To a grihasthi, they have to exercise restraint even more, right? And their senses as well, like indriya sayam, they say in that case. And vanprasthi, it's obligatory on them at that point to just do away with every distraction, worldly distraction, and start acquiring wisdom, the purpose of life. Even more, they have to exercise even more restraint with so many distractions around. So it's at all the stages. It's at all the stages, not just limited to grahasthashram alone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we're talking about senses here. And indriya sanyam that we are talking about, sense control or restraint, it is yogic practice is recommended for persons who are too much in the bodily concept of life. So that is where the yogic practice is recommended in our scriptures. So it's for the general population so that they can control the senses, right? The senses are troubling us day in and day out. And the recommendation is to do practices, and those practices is what we are going to talk about. And gradually, one has to, tame the senses and transcend the gunas as well, at least get to the sattva aspect of it. Tamas and rajas would tell you just enjoy, no matter what it is, go for enjoyment alone. And sattva will take you to a much more restraint. So that is the whole idea. If these regulative principles will take you from tamas to rajas to sattva. That is where the full stop is. Okay. So that is the whole idea of having this framework that our scriptures have beautifully laid for human beings. So it's not like you are going on a highway and there are no traffic lights. There are traffic lights imposed, for each stage, and there are regulative principles around each stage. If we want to lead a human life, a successful human life where we are restraining our senses and not just giving them a free hit. So that is where this come into picture. That was a short introduction on that. Okay, now in Raganuga Bhakti, we would care less about all that stuff. Okay, I'm just telling you from a Karam Kand standpoint, what is this Varnashram Dharma that we are all expected to follow, especially if we are not built a connect with God. Okay, that is a higher thing. We have spoken about moving from tamas to rajas to sattva, not the gunatita aspect of it. And that is where we will have more discussion on the shloka tomorrow, but let's continue on that. Just to get the thought process, I had that initial slide just to get the thought process going. So I have a related story, and let's look at that and have a bit of a discussion around the concept as well. So here is Vishwamitra. As you can see, we have heard this story, right? Vishwamitra and Menaka. So now he was a top yogi, Vishwamitra. But his practice was broken, as soon as he heard the tinkling of the bangles, I think Indra had sent, and that's what he does basically. And then Shakuntala was born out of their wedlock, right? Not wedlock, so yeah. And he was unable to control his senses, and he got attracted to a beautiful woman as soon as he saw, although he was a top yogi. Why did such a big yogi fail? Yogi, right? We are talking, he's not an ordinary human being that we are talking about. And why restraining senses is so difficult? Quick discussion and then we move forward. Anybody wants to give it a shot? Is it a mission impossible that we are signing up for? Is essentially what I'm asking. Yes, Vulgarinji, please. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that his mind is not purified yet. Probably he hasn't attached his mind to the God, and so it is still impure. And he succumbed to his senses, which always run toward, like by nature, run towards material.
Mm-hmm. Fair point. Yeah, something is not right. What that something is what we want to focus on. Some part of the puzzle is still missing. Right? That equation is still not solved. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say this, that because the senses are also material in nature, that's why it's natural for them to get attracted towards material world.
True.
And but it is not impossible. So like it is difficult because of the nature, but it is not impossible. If one attaches the mind to God, then it's all possible.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Yes, I'll touch upon that in next slide. Let's hear from a few more participants.
Badishji, please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Manishi.
Radhe Radhe. So I think he still has desires, and from Vishwamitra, he used to be a king, I believe, if my recollection.
Used to be a king.
Right. So he still has, and he became a saint because of his to compete with Vasishthaji. Something I'm not sure about. Yeah, something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't. So he became a saint for that, and I think he wanted to have the God come into his, but so he turned into a saint. But then God came to Dashrath's king's house, so he still has some desires left, I think, for going back to his kingdom or meant towards the world. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Yeah, obviously, it's a very obvious thing that he still had desires remaining, right? Great point. Yes, Lakshmi, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. It's not like mathematics like 2 + 2 4, when once done it is done, but we had to maintain the control of senses, even though when we get faced to that senses which distract us, so that control and maintenance is important.
Okay, maintenance is important. Beautiful point. Thank you, Lakshmi ji. This last one, Pramod ji, let's quickly take that and then I'll get to this concept. Okay, Sandhya has raised her hand again. Let's hear both of them.
Yeah, so I think it goes to the first slide that you said, that you showed about the seed. So Vishwamitra, by his penance, did a great penance and reached the yogic stage, but the material or the desires were still there, and as soon as they found a conducive environment, it just sprang up.
Great point, Pramodji. I'm glad you could connect the dots there. Very nice. Wonderful. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say some comment that I had received. So Ganapriya ji said that Vishwamitra was probably bound by his previous karma. And Urvi has also mentioned that Maya is God's power. By yogic practices, we can subdue the senses, but not permanently. We also have the example of Subhari Muni. Whenever the knowledge of yoga slips away, even for a moment, we can terribly fall down. There is always a risk before God realization, but senses can be subdued if we subdue Maya by grace of God and Gurus.
Beautiful. I think she summed it up, all of it. So Great points. Yes, Kumarji, you wanted to add something as well, and let's get into this concept. Very, very interesting concept. At least I found it very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maya being the power of God itself, it's very hard to overcome that. So that needs total surrender, right? So even though the sage had great yogic powers, I think the surrender was not there complete, and that's the reason why he had to get. And it's for us, it's pretty this one, right? Most of us are in the clasp of Maya, if we can call that.
Yes, very true.
Thank you, Radhe.
Great. Yes, we'll continue on this conversation. So Patnaji will get back. So if you look at it, this is what happens when we forcibly restrain our senses. The seed is still there. The seed is still there. Now what do? Seed is still there. So now we need technology which will burn the seed. Once you burn the seed, then only the impression of seed will remain. Seed has no potency left. It's not dormant. It doesn't have the potential of a tree at that point. Okay, the burning of the seed is the key. The seed will still remain, always remain. And as soon as it comes in contact with the sense object and it finds a conducive environment, it will rear its head up. And we see so many times when we forcibly say that, okay, I'm not going to take tension, I will not get worried, I will try to stay happy, right? You broke up with somebody, said, okay, I'm over with that person, but you will still get angry. Okay, then the moment will come, it will still have those worries. The moment will come, the same person will start, making something happen in your head. Why? Because you have not really burnt the seeds at that point. There is a little more effort or something more has to happen for you to truly get over that. We need burnt seeds. We don't need dormant seeds. Right? So when saints they descend, when they come with prarabdha, they come with burnt seeds. They have the impression, right? If somebody, let's say it's a sadhan siddh saint who has descended, they take on a prarabdha as a will of God. Even though they're not obliged to. When they take on the prarabdha, they also come with certain sanskars, but they are burnt seeds at that point. They have no power over them at that point. Just impressions. They understand, but it has no power over them at all. No power whatsoever. Those seeds, they lose that power, that potency over them. That is the key thing. Padmaji, you wanted to add something? Please go ahead.
I can't see her. She has raised her hand. Padmaji? Yeah, she's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what is it. I think if I remember the story correctly, when he was actually doing a penance, there was some kind of desire or something that he was working towards. It was like a childhood memory that I have, and I'm not able to remember. Like something he was actually like working towards something. There is was some strong desire that he had. That was the one thing that came to my mind. The other thing is, at that point when he fell for Menaka, I don't think he was God realized, because if he was God realized, probably he would not have fallen for that, right? So he's not there yet. So if it has already happened, and if he's God realized, all the powers that Maya Devi has, like that, they don't work on them at that point, right? Even if Maya Devi is serving God, which is what she's supposed to do, but it's not going to work on them who is actually God realized and realized who they are. So those were the two things that I was going to say. And anyhow, you brought up this seed concept, which I was going to say, but you're covering it. Thanks.
That's true. So just because if somebody is a top yogi doesn't mean he's God realized. Okay, you're still not God realized. So even in bhakti, it is said you can fall down even from Mahabhav. People can fall down. So 99.9% your journey is completed. You can still fall down until that 0.01 is completed. So that is where Tattva Gyan comes in very handy, and having a guru and his grace will make sure you complete that journey. You can fall down from any stage. A Vishwamutra type yogi could fall down, then anybody can fall down. So it's a seed concept, and this shloka is actually introducing, like I said, two diametrically opposite concepts on how to restrain your senses. And that is where we are going to have bulk of our discussion tomorrow on. In the meantime, we do have some more discussion on this topic. So we were going to have more in-depth discussion on those two diametrically opposite approaches so that this concept sinks a little deeper. Okay. But you can always remember the seed in your head now. Okay? The seed is still there. So don't force yourself. Forcing yourself and outwardly saying things does not count for anything. These seeds are very potent, and these are all the lieutenants of Maya. Okay, we cannot. All right. Now we will see something interesting. Okay, the DWFBG family is calling. So are you able to? Are you able to hear the?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, totally out of context. Okay, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So it's all DWG family call. So let's see. All right, so if you enjoyed it, we have a wonderful creative team which continues working with creative ideas. And raise your hand. You have Shefali, Sandhya, Rahul. We have a good team of Instagrammers. So if you want to go deeper into their creativity and see what they churn out, join us on Instagram. Our handle is Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Very simple. Same Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita, no space, right? You can check it out. So thank you guys for creating that. I liked it so much. I thought I'll bring it into the class as well today. All right, so let's continue. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of a detour today. So,
we have a question from Sundarji. Can I please take that?
Sorry, what's the question? Yeah.
Sundarji is asking, is Grihastha not duty bound for generating next?
Duty bound for what's the question?
Is Grihastha not duty bound for generating next? Generating next.
Generating
next.
Oh, generating next. Oh, yeah, it's a huge responsibility on a Grihastha for sure. So the fact of the matter is that, see, when the initial Srishti was created, right, the Sanat Kumars and all, they were all sannyasis, right from the word go. Okay, they all were sannyasis, not interested in anything else. Okay, just do their devotion and all. And then Brahmaji said, okay, what's going to happen with the creation? That's when he created Maithuni Shakti, Srishti, to create that attraction between the opposites so that it continues. However, with that, they created principles around it as well, right? To differentiate you from animals. So that was the whole idea of creating a Maithuni Srishti. Brahmaji said, all right, nobody's going to take the creation forward, so let me do it that way. But yeah, there are principles around it as per our scriptures. But it's not that everybody would turn to sannyasi. It's just like those 4 divisions of society always exist. These will also continue to exist. Okay, so today's topic of discussion is a very important one. The question here is that renunciation or the sacrifice is done from a position of strength or weakness. I would really like to hear it from participants. If we have to restrain something, do we do it from a position of strength or from a weakness? Why or why not? I mean, why along with that?
Yeah, good bhai. Shiramya ji says both.
Both. Okay.
And we can take Samji.
I would like to hear example for that, both, if you can prepare. Let's hear Samji in the meantime.
Samji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. It has to be from the position of strength, not from weakness at all. Because in case somebody is rich or something, I mean, the weak, the fakir is there, the beggar is there. He says, I have left everything, I'm renunciating, I don't care. He doesn't have anything in the first place. And what he may be just boasting, or he just doesn't have good khatte hai, he doesn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
If the king is there, he has everything, then it needs to have the guts to renounce everything. to leave it. And that comes from the inside. So that is from the strength. So that's the basically in nutshell.
Great point. Thank you, Samji. Beautiful points. Yes, Sandhya.
Sandhya ji, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not very different, but mainly this that it can only be done properly from a position of strength. People might feel motivated to practice this from a position of weakness, but it cannot be successfully achieved, I guess. And that's
So, yeah, we will probably take an analogy or a story around it. Now, I think Shriram has said that both from a position of weakness. So if somebody can give me an example of how we can do renunciation or a sacrifice from a position of weakness, I think it will be interesting to hear that as well.
Shriram ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. The activities we do, they have the consequences, positive and negative consequences. And deep down our heart, we have a fear of the negative consequences. And not that the fear, we just don't want that. We are naturally aligned towards happiness, and we don't want misery that way. So, and when we know the consequences and what it can result into, we avoid it. Like suppose there were no consequences of like the sense activities, whatever you said, then nobody would try to control it, right? So we know the consequences and the misery it causes, and we don't want it. And that is why I feel that this is from a part of weakness. The strength is needed, but since we know of the consequences, I felt that weakness also comes into picture. Like suppose, let's take from a health perspective, and somebody has a jumper's knee, and they're not supposed to jump, it'll affect their needs. It's not like with the others. So they restrain the jumping activities. So if they didn't have jumping knee, then they would have jumped a lot, right? So that's the so they know of the consequences, and again, it's the willpower, the strength that they get, like to take care of their knee or whatever. I mean, I just told an example, but this is my thought.
Okay. Great, thank you. So let me tell you a story. In fact, let me tell you a joke, okay? So there was a guy who owed another guy 10,000 rupees. Right? So every day he would carry those 10,000 rupees in his pocket, but could never, had the heart to give it to him. Right? So he was just buying time, and I don't know what was his intent. And one day these guys were walking through the forest, right? And some dacoits, they see some dacoits coming. As soon as he sees the dacoits, he said, "Hey, I owed you 10,000. Can you take it back?" Immediately gives it to him. Right? So is that from a position of strength or a position of weakness at that point, right? There's a beautiful story Swamiji also tells. He says that there was a guy who was doing his morning vandan. So he was having a bowl of rice in front of him and doing that vandan, and he was thinking, how much should I give this much to God and keep this much for myself, or give this much to God, keep this much for myself? And he was deliberating and thinking about how much to keep for himself, how much to offer to God. And in the meantime, a wind came and blew everything away. He said, "Okay, God, everything for you now." Right? So is it truly a sacrifice? So this is how we do sacrifice things, right? So that is from a position of weakness, truly doesn't count. And you can actually, when you have a choice and you exercise it. And choice, when do you have a choice? When from a position of strength. When you have no choice, so it's a position of strength there. That's when you are restraining your sense. When you don't have an ice cream and you say, I don't like ice cream, by the way. The moment you see 2 or 3 scoops in front of you, and then you are able to restrain, then it's the thing, right? That is why it says, like in some of these ashrams, it's like putting ice cream on your tongue and telling not to taste it. That's when you can do it. You're exercising restraint, and it's going to really help you. Right? One of the saints, he had a very affinity for apples, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to see this apple in front of me deteriorate, but I will not eat it." Having a choice, having the power to take it and take that bite and not exercising it, that's when you're truly trying to restrain your senses, not that when it's already snatched away from you. Yes, I can see a few more hands. Let's hear from them.
Shruti ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Shruti.
Radhe Radhe, Shyamji, Radhe Radhe, Nathan. So I think renunciation or sacrifice is done from the position of strength, because if it is done from the position of weakness, then it would be, as we call, falgu vairagya, like a fake one. Because if we are doing it like renunciation should only be done if people have the true calling from God. Because if you have true calling, you have such a strong desire from within that even if you are working or staying with your family, you're no good to them. You are always absorbed in God. So you have to actually follow your calling. So that is the position of strength that you have to leave, but it is from the position of strength. You have the strength to follow your calling, your the purpose that you're here for. Yeah, that is to be one with God. Yeah.
Great. I like the fact that you connected the dot with Falgu Vairagya on that. So you've already become a graduate in,
I'm just a primary student, I guess. Just learning.
Oh, that was good. That was a good connection you made. Yeah, that's a Falgu Vairagya where you have the attachment. It's just that that thing is not there. But yeah, that was pretty nice connection. Great point. Thanks, Shruti.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sham.
Padmaji?
Yes, Padmaji.
Radhe, Radhe. So when we deeply contemplate on this, right, anything that we want to renounce, right, anything that we want to give up, the initial intent and purpose of giving up something is because it is keeping us binding. Whatever that giving up is, whether it is a memory or even to the point of like attachment, and when we think about God realization, right, and then the binding of our senses, our desires, right, anything which is actually making us bind in ignorance and suffering. So the two platforms that we always talk about is the material platform and the spiritual platform. Anything in the realm of spiritual platform that we are giving up materialistically is to lead towards spiritual platform and eventually God realization. So anything that is associated with materialistic thing, that is because they're keeping us binding and they are keeping us in the suffering. But in the interim, one could be a little bit confused also, because the temporary happiness that we get in the materialistic realm, one might be thinking that we are actually sacrificing those things, because the perception of happiness that we have about the materialist thing, whether it's person or situation or pleasures, TV, cars, riches, $1 million houses, whatever, the perception or the impressions that we have in our mind, thinking that this will make us happy, we feel like we are overcoming those happinesses that are the impressions in our mind. So one might feel like, what, it is coming out of the weakness, but the strength, it has to be from a point of strength, because if you're coming from the point of strength, the tendency of your falling back is much more less, because you are trying to overcome that bondage, you are trying to overcome that suffering, you're trying to overcome that hurdle which is happening in the mind. So when you do it from the strength, your chances of actually falling is much more less. So if you're actually doing it from the point of weakness, which is either by the fear or the greed or comparison, yes, of course there is much more tendency that you will actually fall back whenever that opportunity actually shows up in your life. But even if the opportunity shows up in your life, and if you're determined and convicted in your mind, you would look at it, you would just wave a hi, and you would just say bye, and you're not going to engage that in your daily thing. You would look at it because you cannot avoid it. It will come to your mind, but you would just say a good hi, and you would just say goodbye.
Great. Yeah, because you have grown out of it. Beautiful point, Padmaji. Yeah, when we do it from strength, essentially we are exercising the choice and we are making the choice. When we are doing it from a position of weakness, the choice is being made for us. We are not exercising the choice at that point, right? So next time the same situation comes, like you said, Padmaji, there's no guarantee we will not fall for it again. Beautiful points. Great. All right. Couple of hands. Let's quickly take them. I think we can wrap it up on time today. 10:10 is the time we have kept. So everybody.
Surendraji, Radhe, Radhe.
Yes, Surendraji.
I just took a hint from what you are saying about the wind blowing off whatever you are thinking. Mm-hmm. Should we not say that the God helped him to solve his puzzle? Kitna bhagwan ko do, kitna apne paas rakho, nothing doing. Let me help you.
Yeah, so God sometimes makes it easy for us. He snatches away the other choice, right? And every time if we have to rely on God snatching away the choice from us, then we are not strengthening our intellect, right, towards surrender. We are letting God make that choice. We are letting go of the opportunity where we can restrain our mind, right? So that is the thing. See,
but at a point of confusion, the God helps.
Yeah, God, sometimes He helps. See, when we are on the path of devotion, the anartha nivritti is God only helps, right? Sometimes we are not able to make up our mind. We are like, oh my God, I should do this, that, right? This, and then sometimes God just takes away that choice, simplifies the process for you. It can happen as well. I mean, at least I have experienced it. But we should not solely rely on that alone. God is willing to take 10 steps and help us, but then we need to help ourselves as well, right? Based on the aligning to the principles. If we offload or outsource everything to God, you only decide for me, then yes, if you have surrendered, He'll take control. Without having surrendered, not exercising that choice and leaving everything to God is not usually a sentiment devotee harbors, right? They put in their best and leave to God the rest. And obviously God is there to help as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear.
Today, can you pose the announcements? Can you say the announcements first?
Yeah, you can make the announcements quickly, and then we have few more hands. We can conclude our discussion as well.
Yeah. We have the Super Account on Sunday
coming up, retreat coming up, Swamiji's
Yeah.
FTP program coming up. Okay, so these are the three marquee events.
Yeah.
18th to 20th, we have Janmashtami celebration. I think on 20th or 21st evening, I believe that LTP starts till 24th.
Yes.
I believe. And
Yes, it's for 4 days. Yeah, true.
after that, we have a Dallas retreat coming up, and West Coast retreat is starting this Friday. If you have signed up online for that, check it out. And Science of Happiness is a wonderful lecture series that is coming up. We all want to be happy, and if you attend one of these LTP programs from Swamiji, you would be blown away. It's like step by step by step by step, will take you to the whole 9 yards or the whole science behind how it works and what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. It's a outstanding series, LTP series that he conducts. Do check that. And if you're in Dallas, on or around Dallas, even in India, Dallas retreat is open for it's said Dallas retreat, but it is open for everybody. So please.
Thank you so much, Bhai, for
what is the time slot for parenting?
And parenting, I think it's open for everybody now. I think they make announcement, so yeah, you can make
time slot.
Time, sorry.
What is the time slot? Tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow, India time, 5 a.m.
6 a.m., right?
6 a.m. tomorrow morning, yes. India time, yeah.
Thank you.
Friday morning.
Yeah. So do check it out as well. All right.
And
you can take last
one more end is Samji is asking, are we going to have sessions during the Janmashtami?
Janmashtami, we are not going to have session because Janmashtami is on the weekend, and weekends we don't have sessions.
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
Yeah. Thank you
so much. It's over the weekend, so we will not. The question should be, right question should have been, are we going to have session during LTP? Okay, so I believe we'll probably have to take a break during that week as well. So yeah. And I'll let you know if Friday session conflicts with Swamiji's lecture because of the West Coast retreat, I'll get to know. And in case we have to call it off, I'll let you know in advance. But for now, it is on for the next 2 days.
Yeah, Rahulji, Radhe Radhe, nice shades you have.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I'm seeing people in shades. Maybe I should wear something as well. Yes, go ahead, Rahul.
Radhe Radhe. I think we have to remember the concept of Shrey and Pray, because when we remember Shrey, then we are actually able to exercise our willpower, because we know that the sweetness lies in the end. Otherwise, if we focus only on Pray, that is instant gratification, then that will be a problem. Yeah. Radhe Radhe.
Are you wearing some wisdom glasses, Rahulji?
No, these are Zoom classes. Yeah, Zoom goggles.
Very nice. Yeah, Shreyas and Prayas. That's a very important concept. Right? They say like bado ka kaha or aamle ka swad. You get it after a while. So Shreyas is like that. Preyas is instantly, it will be very appealing, but in long term, it is poisonous. Anything that gives you instant gratification, whether it's instant 2-minute noodles, instant coffee, whatever is instant, right, has to fall into Preyas category because it is instant. Things that are worth pursuing usually are uphill. It takes some austerity, sacrifice, effort to get those. That is how God has designed everything. Something which is a shortcut is usually not good for us in long run. Okay, no offense meant to Maggie noodles or any other brand, but I'm just telling you that. Yes.
Sadhya ji, please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. There are 3 inputs from 3 participants. I'll just quickly read them. So Lakshmi ji has said, I think both with respect to weakness and strength. So she says that I think both. Initially, it may start with weakness, and once we taste it, strength will automatically come and pull us forward.
Yes, beautiful point. Yes, it could be a journey. It's not 0 or 1. It could be a journey because it may start off as a weakness, and then as we grow in our understanding and wisdom, then we gravitate towards exercising that choice. So beautiful point. It could be a journey, and most of us are in a journey only. Thank you for doing that.
Next is from Urvi ji. Renunciation is done from a position of strength. Feeling helpless in front of Guru and God is the biggest strength, I guess. But we not let Nirasha enter our way. Swami Vivekananda ji says, to think yourself weak is the biggest sin. The more we progress, the more strength we have on the world, and the more weak we feel, little and helpless we feel in front of God. But then that is spiritual strength. We can keep working with all that pain of being away from God for His happiness, and that makes us more strong.
Very profound thoughts, Urvi, and it's a very deep thoughts that you have shared. Very true. As you progress on this path, you don't become weak, you become strong. You become strong on this path, not weak. That is another sign of spiritual progress. Inner resilience, you will start building big time, right? Outwardly, you may be shedding tears, but the resilience that you carry will be amazing. Like Kabirji has a doha, I've forgotten that maybe somebody remembers that Kumhar's pot, right? Once it falls down, it breaks. That is how Durjan people are, impure hearts are. But as you become like more like gold, multiple times, you can do it, it'll still not break. And that is the symptom of progressing spiritually. You will have more resilience, it will not break you easily. Beautiful thoughts, Urvi. So, few symptoms on the spiritual path. The more you get to know, the more you understand how little you know. But then you are gaining strength. It's not making you weak. And you're becoming more optimist. You're not becoming pessimist about life. Ashavadi is one of the symptoms around it. Great points. These are some of the things which would tell you, will give you some kind of a sense, am I progressing spiritually or not? That question keeps popping up, right? You become more optimistic, you'll feel more joy, you have more strength to face the world and circumstances around you, and you are getting more humble, not just outwardly, but from inside as well, because everything you see at God and Guru's grace, and you know how insignificant you are. So
yeah, and then there's a comment from Smita ji. Strength, mental, physical, spiritual, to restrain, and weakness, broke down, frustration, depression, or not doing anything. So those are the signs of weakness, and those were the signs of strength. So.
True. Very true. So we are full of hope and optimism when we progress on this path. And the journey, like I keep on saying the same thing from Swamiji, right? The journey starts becoming so beautiful that you don't really care about the destination. When you do care, you have a goal, but then you make the journey so fulfilling on a day-to-day basis that it's like, okay, I will just focus on the process and keep making progress and not really worry about the result. And the strength, the resilience is the key litmus test for that. Even Gopi's side, they said we are abala. Abala doesn't mean the one who doesn't have strength. It's like a lot of strength. Those kind of abalas, they declared themselves to be. In Hindi, they say abala, I'm nari abla, you're doing that. Abla means I'm not having strength. They were saying we are of extraordinary strength. That is the strength you get as you progress in bhakti and in devotion. You can face the world with confidence, assurance, and not break down just like that, because you start tapping into God's energy, divinity there. Okay, last but not the least, Padmaji had something. I think we can wrap it up on time. That 10:10 we had thought, so 10:15 we'll wrap up today.
Padmaji,
I think
yeah.
I think it was Sanji, not sure who was bringing up this thing. When we are willing to sacrifice something, not as in sense of, oh my god, I'm giving this up, but actually in the mode of surrender. I would love to give this up for you. I love you, God, and I want to give this up for you because I connect with you, and this is how you're truly feeling. When you're truly in that state of mind and you're giving it from a peaceful mind and loving mind, um he will take away the biggest hurdles that are happening in your life, and he will leave some once in a while, like, as you are progressing, something to keep you in that path. Because if he doesn't put any hurdles in your life, if he doesn't continue to give you things that you need to work on, it's the arrogance or the ego will take over. So just to keep us in the path and be connected with the God, he's because he's so graceful, he will put you in the situations where he will be testing you, and that's where your awareness and your connection, you have to keep at it with the God to say, yes, I see the perspective and the objective and the purpose of why you're doing this and why those situations are coming. And he would test you just to keep you purified and continue to be purified. That was the one thing that I wanted to say. And I think it was Abdul Kalam Azad ji who said this: if you really want to shine like a sun, but be willing to burn like one. So if you're really aspiring to shine from inside like a sun, you should be willing to like give up those things and burn like a sun. That was the number two thing. And then that helplessness thing that many of us brought into light, that helplessness thing is not saying to God that I'm so weak, but you're saying, I am surrendered to you. Before you, I am nothing. So when you go in front of him saying, I am nothing, that is just saying that you're so powerful and you're glorifying God. In that glory, you develop bhakti. In that bhakti, you will get the courage. In that courage, you will get the conviction. In that conviction, you get the clarity.
Great point. True that being vulnerable, being helpless in front of God is a sign of humility, where you simply accept that God, I can do only so much. I need your grace. I need your support to progress further. That is a great sentiment. But here it's when we have a choice to surrender, right? There are two choices in front of us. Either I'm complaining about my situation, or I'm saying, okay, God, that's your wish. That is the point where we are trying to say that, okay, when you have a choice and you exercise it, that usually comes from a position of strength. Right? When we have something to offer to God, we offer it. That's a choice that we are exercising. When we don't have it, it's already being snatched away from us. Then it becomes a position of weakness where we are saying, okay, God, it's all yours now. But yeah, becoming vulnerable in front of God and seeking his help is the sentiment devotee always harbors, because we need God's grace on this path. Thank you. Great points, Padmaji. All right, last but not the least, Shionji, real quick.
Radhe, I just wanted to share an example, my personal example. So I was thinking it comes from a place, to answer the question, it comes from both strength and weakness. And I was going to first talk about weakness, but then I said, let's leave that alone and let me talk about strength. So for me, my example, like in the past, whenever we're doing any kind of religious services or puja or whatever, we would fast when it's a religious day of significance. We would fast, meaning sometimes we don't eat at all, like, or we just eat vegetarian food. But it's been almost 4 years now for me personally that I've given up non-veg food. And I don't have any hankering or anything like that. I just gave it up, and that was it, the end. Like, I don't have any craving. And I can see people actually eating non-veg food. And I don't want to get sensitive about this, but I actually feel sorry for people eating non-veg food. I'm thinking, you're killing an animal. An animal has to give up its life so that you can have a meal, whereas there's other things that you could eat that is, better for, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm thinking, what I'm saying is a place coming from me coming from a place of strength, and I have no regrets.
Right. I think this could be a discussion in itself. I think there's some disturbance here, and it will open up a can of worms. But we did touch upon this topic, and we'll again come back to that. It's a pretty broader topic, but yes, when you are giving the sense of, it's also giving up a gratification that you feel, right? Sense of taste, probably. So it is kind of a sacrifice, especially if your mind is telling you to go for something purely out of sensory gratification, and you restrain it with knowledge. That is where you're empowering your intellect, and you are strengthening your mind as well with regards to restraining your senses. So if you go back to that chariot analogy, you are tightening the reins around the horses, which is a good thing, because horses are having a free hit in our life right now. Messenger is asleep, horses are taking us to wherever direction they want to go, and the reins have to follow, and charioteer is completely helpless. So we just have to reverse that, and this process that we're talking about is just tightening those reins. Those reins need to be tightened. We spoke about the concept. Tomorrow we are going to go more deeper into it, because forcefully we can do only so much. How do we burn the seeds is what we will get into tomorrow. Okay? Because the scriptures talk about completely diametrically opposite approaches that one can take on this path, and which approach would truly take us to burning the seeds, so that you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like you grow out of something, right? It doesn't bother you anymore. Something is, you forcefully restrain yourself, but you're not sure if that thing comes in front of you, will you be able to? Sometimes you just grow out of things. It's like, all right, doesn't matter. Even if it's in front of me, I've grown out of it, so I'll not fall for it. So that confidence will only come when that seed is burnt. If that seed is there and you're restrained, it can again sprout anytime. It can surprise you even after 30, 40, 50 years. That is why drug addicts, you can't trust them. They can get back to drugs even after 30 years, 40 years, anytime basically, because that seed is still there. Great. Let's do our closing prayers. We're wrapping up at 10:10. I had thought, but I think we're still doing much better than most other days. So let's close our session with our closing prayers.
Yeah, we have two regulars.
Yeah,
Nitin,
can I say 4 lines before we close? So I read somewhere that जिंदगी जीना आसान नहीं होता, जीवन को आसान बनाना पड़ता है, कुछ सब्र करके, कुछ बर्दाश्त करके, और कुछ नजरअंदाज करके. So I love these lines.
Very nice. Very beautiful. कुछ सब्र करके, कुछ नजरअंदाज करके, and
बर्दाश्त करके.
कुछ बर्दाश्त. See, we have to tolerate, we have to overlook. So basically overlook means we pick our battles. Is it even worth it picking it up, right? And second is tolerate. That is also spiritual strength. God says just learn to tolerate, endure things. And the third one is sabr, be patient about it, right? Sabr ka phal is meetha, as they say. Beautiful. Very nice, Payalji. Okay, we can do our closing prayers for the day, and I look forward to another fascinating conversation tomorrow on this topic.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani
Pashyantu,
Ma Kaschit Bhave.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.
Yom Radhe Radhe. Have a wonderful day, great rest of your evening, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.
नितिन जी, जस्ट ए मिनट. हिंदी में अबला, उसको हम इंग्लिश करते हैं तो वीकनेस टू स्ट्रेंथ आ जाता है. अब का मतलब नाउ, ला का मतलब LAW.
अब का मतलब नाउ, ला का मतलब
LAW.
Law.
Oh, now law.
Law. That means now the enlightenment of the ladies, abla, what we call abla in real terms, they are now getting enlightened to get that law back on their back to get strength. Abla. Now let me see what is the law. Okay.
Very nice. That was an interesting interpretation, Surendra ji.
आपकी
like-
प्रेरणा है सर, सब आपकी प्रेरणा है.
I think in this context, Swamiji had said it during his lecture that abala can also be looked at as a bala.
Abala. Yeah.
बला भी, हाँ, बला भी हो सकती है.
Yeah, I think in his Gopi Geet lecture, he has spoken about it. Abala.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abala. They are, of extreme strength. But yeah, the bottom line is that as we develop spiritually, we develop that strength. That strength we can experience. We will not just break down just like that. It's just like those shockers you have built. So when you will come across those potholes, you know that you have better resilience now. Not like shaking every time you come across potholes. So that is the thing. Good. Interesting discussion like always, and tomorrow we'll continue this and conclude it. It's a very good shloka talking about restraining the senses and burning the seeds. So we'll continue tomorrow.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Good night for you. Good morning for us. Thank you.
Good day. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe.